Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of HMF Live. I'm Tanya, the host and founder of Hustle to Muscle Fitness and this show, and thanks so much for being here. First of all, let me just apologize to you because there have not been many live episodes this month because for those of you who don't know, I actually have another full-time job as a grant administrator for the largest university in our state, and so that requires a lot of travel on my part. And so I was in Vegas like the first week, and then San Antonio the second week. This is my week home, and then next week I will be in San Diego. So during the weeks that I'm traveling or at conferences and things like that, unfortunately you don't get live episodes because I'm usually somewhere in transit or otherwise occupied. So next week there will not be a live episode. You'll get another replay, but I still hope that you take the time to watch some of those old episodes because they can still hopefully provide some value to you in different areas of health, fitness, and life in general. So this is actually like the one live episode that you'll get this month, and it happens to be our regular monthly relationship episode. Which is why I'm waiting for Gary
Hello.
as well. And this particular relationship episode, this particular relationship episode is actually a little bit more special because this week on Thursday, actually, we are celebrating our 15th anniversary. Now, not our wedding anniversary, that happens in July, but 15 years of actually being together, like our dating anniversary. And so I thought, well, what a good time to kind of come in and do more of a sort of impromptu type of reflection or look back on the last 15 years and maybe impart some, what people might argue is wisdom or some things that we've learned over the last 15 years and maybe help you in your relationships, maybe avoid some pitfalls or things to keep in mind. So, sound good?
Sure.
Yeah. So why don't we start with maybe like the beginnings of a relationship? Like, what are some things, do or don'ts, to keep in mind when you're in a new relationship or even in a new marriage?
I don't know, it's been so long.
It feels like it was
The
just
biggest thing I think
yesterday.
you have to do is let go of the past. That at the beginning of the relationship, because once your oxytocin is done, and that happens in about 6 months, and that's that butterfly goody feeling that you get. Yeah,
The honeymoon phase.
The honeymoon phase. That's oxytocin in your brain being released, so you get all these good, happy feelings. Well, you only get that for about 6 months, and after that, that's when they say, "Oh, the honeymoon stage is over." Well, yeah, because that's when the googly stage is done and over with. And then you go through the, forget about the past stage. Either you get over it or you don't. And then the next stage would be, pretty much deciding, not deciding, but letting the love be there, or the connection be there.
Now, I will say, in terms of oxytocin, speaking from a physiological standpoint, it's a hormone that gets released, but you can recreate that every time you have like skin-to-skin contact,
Right.
like physical touch. So it's important to keep some of those types of intimacies going too, so that way you continue to experience that.
Yeah.
But as you move out of the quote-unquote honeymoon stage, that is when you hopefully will start moving into some deeper levels of your relationship. And so on more of a comical note, at least for me, one of the signs in our early relationship, one of the signs that I knew we were getting closer was the first time that he farted in front of me. Now, you might think that's kind of silly, which, it is. But so for somebody like me, I really don't have a problem like farting in front of most people, especially like friends or family. I don't necessarily I'm not breaking wind inside of like a conference meeting, but but he was not comfortable with doing that, like even when we were just dating. And so the first time he did that, I was like, "Oh, you farting in front of me, that means we're getting closer." So it was kind of stupid, but it was a matter of getting to a new level of comfort with one another. But what he was saying about the past, like each person is going to bring in a crap load of baggage from the past.
I came in with an ex-wife. She'd never been, she was still a virgin when we met. So, I mean, I'd already been married, and been divorced. and been in an abusive relationship, and my past was riddled with bullshit. As a matter of fact, I'm still going through therapy at 43 years old to still deal with it. So I came with, you know, a legion of fucking bullshit and baggage and everything else. So, you know, either you make it out or you don't. That's not, you know, the biggest thing I can say is communication. Talk about it. You know, talk.
But there's kind of two parts to that. So yes, a person's coming in with a lot of baggage, and for us that actually kind of trickled into our marriage for a very long time. And part of that being not because he didn't tell me about stuff that happened in his past, but because he hadn't actually dealt with it.
Right.
So if you have a lot of like trauma in your past, like he did or does, you need to like not just talk, but you need to actually talk to somebody, a professional, so you can really start to sort that out and be okay with it yourself. Because for me, like there were certain things I had to get over. Like, yeah, he's right. I was a virgin when we got together, and so I had to get over how many partners he had. You know, I didn't have a problem with him being married before or anything like that. But
sexual orientation.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. Well, might have been a bigger deal for you. Well, I had questions about it. But even still, like, so I think I came to terms with some of those things probably faster than he did, because he hadn't really even dealt with it or accepted that within himself. So that's part one. Part one is you have to be okay with it and be honest with your partner about it. But then the partner has to get the time to process and decide if that's something that they can be okay with.
Right.
And so that's maybe not what you don't want to like dump it all out on the first date, but you know, over time, you know, as you start to get closer, you can open up to one another more often and share more of those things. So that way you do have the opportunity to try and move past some of those things.
Right.
Now, what would you say is more crucial as you've moved into like maybe a few years later, you know, marriage, moving in, all that kind of stuff, like deeper into the relationship?
Well, see, that's where everything that you think is normal that you do, because it usually moves into cohabitation, everything that you think is normal is not normal to the person you're living with. So, you know, you cannot, well, this should be actually from the beginning all the way through, but you cannot put your expectations on anybody.
We still fall into that trap.
You cannot project you cannot think like, well, you know, you should know this. No.
He's pulling this from like something that happened yesterday.
Yeah, you should know this. Well, I would not have fucking asked if I'd known it. Well, don't you remember? Oh my God. Why are you asking me if I remember if I'm asking you?
I feel like
I don't know.
The advanced stage.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know, I'm gonna ask. So you can't put your expectations on somebody else. That is just one, it is absolutely not fair. And two, it gets nothing accomplished. It gets worse. Because now you're going into it with these preconceived, you know, like, oh, well, he should know this or she should know this. Well, they wouldn't ask if you didn't. And I don't care if you have to repeat it 27 times. You know. That's what happens, man. Deal. Fucking deal. You know? It's just the way it goes. You cohabitate with somebody. Everything you think is normal is not normal.
Now, on that, because I thought he was going in a different direction with that, but when you do, like, move in together, something that you also have to realize is that, you know, every person is guilty of it. When we first start out in a relationship, like, we all have a layer of a facade that we put out, because we want to put best foot forward. You know, we don't want them to see all our crazy right off the bat. I mean, some people are so crazy that they can't hide it, but but when you do move into together, that's when some of those layers, those facades start to peel away, and then they start to get more of the, like, real you. Not that you're trying to deceive them, but it's just human nature to put up, like, I want to make a good first impression.
Yeah.
And so that's when you start to find out about some of their little habits that you didn't know about. And, you know, it's like, you hear people talk about that old argument of, like, squeezing the toothpaste from the top or the bottom, or do you have the toilet paper roll, like, rolling up or rolling down or whatever, like those kinds of stupid things. But those sorts of things can be pet peeves for one another and can really kind of create, even as small as some of them might be, can create sort of a divide if you have, again, that goes to the expectations. If you have expectations for the way things should be, and they don't fit that because they live their daily habits in a different way, and so those are some things to be aware of, so that way you go into, if you do decide to live together, keep an open mind. Now, so what would you say, like, kind of getting into that 7-year itch, like 7 to 10 years of a relationship? What would be some of the more nitty-gritty kinds of things? Like, at this point, 7 to 10 years, a lot of couples, I'd say probably more than not, have gotten into having kids. We didn't, so I can't give you a whole lot there. But you've gotten into, like, probably careers, you've gotten into jobs, maybe even moved. I know for us, we had moved by then, and I was definitely further into my career. And I think, I don't remember what year of our marriage you turned 30. Was that 2000? I guess that was 2005.
Yeah.
So we'd only been married a year. So probably closer to 40 then for him. But that you're getting into different phases of life too.
Right.
Now you're starting to get into different phases as an individual.
That's what happened with us too. It's like I was already moved into my 30s. She was still in her mid 20s. You know, so what is the old? You know, I went. I'm 43 now. I went and hung out with two 25-year-olds, and I'll never fucking do that again. You know, because 25-year-olds are annoying as hell. Well, when you're 32, your 25-year-old is as annoying as hell. You know, I mean, it just happens. It's inevitable because you are in a different spot. You know, like now I'm 43, so you know I'm in a different spot than she is. She's in her mid 30s. So
I'm moving in my late 30s.
Right. You know, so
we're a little closer now in that sort of state of mind.
Yeah, after 40 you don't really change much.
Well, and just the
35.
you know, the female to male brain is always gonna have a difference. In most cases, women tend to mature faster, and then it also depends on who's, like, basically your more responsible one, who's the more like kind of go with the flow. So just by the nature of, like, my work and stuff, I tend to be the more responsible one, and so it's almost sort of flipped in that case, because he is more of the, like, kind of irresponsible, sometimes childish one, where I used to be when I was like 25 to 30, and now it's kind of the reverse. Now you probably think I was in my 40s and he wasn't, you know. So I think that's something else too that you start to learn as you basically you're growing together, your relationship is aging, you guys are aging together, like, roles are going to kind of be fluid. Like, there are going to be times where, like, he's, like, clearly the man of the house, taking charge, doing things that he's got to do for our family or whatnot, and then there's times where I actually am, and it's like, this is what has to happen. And so, like, those traditional, like, you know, man brings home the bacon, woman cooks the bacon, like, doesn't really exist in a lot of cases anymore, and certainly not for ours. So you have to also realize that different situations are going to require you to step up in different ways. And sometimes he takes a lead and I step back, and sometimes I take a lead and he steps back. So you just have to also remember that, like, if you stay rigid in whatever roles you think you should be in, it's probably going to cause a lot more
friction.
Yeah, friction and complications, and just make processes harder trying to get through situations. Now, I would say for us, since probably like halfway through our marriage, maybe even earlier than that, we've gone through some freaking, just some shit. And one of the things that I know both he and I have sort of come to realize is that even if we are at each other's throat about something, if something happens, like, outwardly from the outside world, I guess, we are really good about coming together. And coming together to tackle or address whatever issue, you know, has come up or whatnot. You know, so, like, in the instance, like, you guys all know, we lost Luna, like, almost a month ago. We weren't necessarily fighting then, but everything else got put on hold because we were dealing with that. And so we wanted to make sure that we were, you know, taking care of ourselves, but that we were there for each other, that we were there for all of our animals, because she was the lead of the pack, and so we've been really, you know, making sure that all the rest of the boys are okay. But, you know, when stuff like that's happened, like, he's lost his mom, he's lost his grandma, And then during those years, we were having more problems. And so we've just always found a way to come together and know that we have more strength when we rely on each other than when we don't. So.
And I think really honestly too, that comes from, I'm gonna say it. It comes from education. The more educated you are, the better the better your arguments are going to be. But two, you're not looking at it from people say, well, like, how do I say this? Just that. Education is part of it. You can't, and I don't mean that you have to have like an academic school. I'm just saying, like, educate yourself on whatever it is that you need to know. Don't learn shit.
Be willing to learn.
Yeah. Maybe they're gonna get some water.
And so that's education, I think, kind of plays a part. Sometimes it actually drags our arguments out longer because then we're both like, nope, show me the facts. Where does it say that? Wait, I need to look this up.
Where'd you get your data?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that necessarily education always is a good thing about in a relationship when it comes to arguing, but it can help. But I think that in terms of coming together, though, like if you've been through some crap, you're going to put each other through crap too. Like Gary and I have each put each other through the ringer. But at the end of the day, we also know that there was something, deeper and more emotional that brought us together and kept us together than just some like fleeting moment sort of deal. And so I think that if you can keep that at the forefront, always remember why you started dating, why you decided to get married, why you're together, then that will help you sort of navigate through some of those more stormy days, if you will. Now, like I said, we're coming up on 15 years this Thursday, actually 14 years of being married. Now, a lot of people might say, well, you don't have kids, so that makes it easier for you. You know what? You might be right. I honestly could not tell you because we don't have kids. But what I can tell you is that we have been through some shit that some of you probably haven't, and you may not know how to balance or juggle. So that's not to say that any one situation is worse than others. What I am saying is at the end of the day, a lot of, and this is going out to people with kids. So a lot of parents, it's all about the kids, all about the kids, all about the kids. So from 0 to 18, their entire life and world revolves around the kids. And then when they go through that empty nest syndrome, they don't know what to do because they've become so disconnected from one another that now it's like, I don't even know what to say to him or how I'm supposed to spend time with her. Like, it's so awkward because we haven't had couple focus. We haven't had a couple's time in 18 years. And now we're trying to reconnect, and we're completely different people than we were before we had kids. So my advice to parents is your relationship has to even come before the kids. Now, I'm not saying before their well-being. Obviously, you still got to take care of them. But you need to carve out time as a couple to focus on your relationship. Just you, just mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or whoever. You still need to focus on your relationship because you are the example for how your kids, how you want them to be in their relationships as they get older. You are the example for how a man should treat somebody or a woman should treat somebody, what kind of expectations they should have. So don't be the type of couple where you've doted so much on your kids that when they're gone, which hopefully you have raised kids that will eventually leave, that you now don't know what to do with your husband or wife. Because then, that's why, honestly, I think a lot of couples end up divorcing. You hear them divorcing after 20, 25 years is because they've disconnected with one another.
If you do not have kids, when you get together, it is recommended that you cohabitate for at least 5 years before you have children, because you need to establish your relationship before you can establish a child, like you were saying earlier.
So very clinical.
Well, but what I'm saying is like, that's it. You know what I mean? You have to establish, who you guys are going to be as people together before you can come together and have a child. And I'll tell you, not having that 4 or 5 years beforehand really has the probability of screwing that kid up, because now you're going to fight in front of them. You're going to do everything in that 5 years that you could have done without doing in front of your kid. Now you're going to do it in front of your kid. And your first 5 years, actually your first 4.5 years are the shittiest, It is. It's the shittiest. It's the hardest. Because you're trying to get to know each other. You're trying to figure out, oh my God, do I really want this crap in my life? You know, really, is this what I want to do for the next 60 years? I mean, there's all these things, and you're also finding out new shit that you didn't know existed because it wasn't imperative to the other person, and it just came up one day. And that was one of your deal breakers if it had been at the beginning. But it's not now. Now it's 4.5, now it's 4 years in. So now you're going to fight. You have 2 kids. Can't fight in front of kids. I'm just saying, see how that just snowballs into a bullshit world? Stop having kids until you've been together for 5 years. That's just it. You've got many more years to have offspring and mate and do everything else that you need to do. But hold off for the first 5 years. Just do it.
At least a few. All right, so we're coming up on time. Is there any parting wisdom that you would like to give to maybe younger, newer couples out there?
Both of you shut your mouths. That's pretty much one of the biggest things. Shut your mouth. Shut up. If the word shut up happens in your head and you don't, you're going to say the dumbest shit. Don't go there. And don't use your weapon or don't use your words as weapons. That's just it. Don't throw daggers at each other just because you can. You know, I mean that's.
Take a minute.
And you've taken the constructive conversation and it made it deconstructive. So, you know, listen, shut up.
There's an old saying I've heard: you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. You should do more listening than talking.
Yep.
That's what that's supposed to say.
Right.
My last piece of advice that I would give to you, and you're going to hear this one on a lot of like Wendy days, people sign the books and stuff, and I don't personally agree with it. You'll always hear that like, don't go to bed angry. Honestly, I think that's bullshit. Because if I'm angry and I want time to process, I'm going to go to bed. If it's coming at bedtime, like I got to work tomorrow, I'm going to go to bed. Now, and sometimes what that does for me is I will wake up, feel less heated and in the moment, and I will feel more, you know, refreshed and rested and stuff like that. And then there's a much better likelihood that I will be able to have a calm, coherent, adult conversation with Gary than if I was just back at him in the moment, you know. And so we have worked over the last couple of years, at least the last year anyway, we've worked on some of our communication, like knowing when we are kind of at that sort of point where, like, you know what, he goes, okay, I need a minute, like, I'm going to go away, don't follow me, just give me a minute. And I say, okay. And then I tell him, okay, but when you come back, I need to say this. So that's kind of how we've started working out some things. Not perfect, doesn't always work. But I personally don't find a problem with going to bed angry if it means that you will then be able to come back tomorrow and have a better and more productive conversation. So, all right. I don't want to take up any more time. Thank you so much for watching. If you have other tips, maybe some of you out there have been together even longer than we have, would love to hear some advice from you guys in the 20, 25, 30-year range, and let us know what can we expect in the next 15 years. So, all right, guys, have a great night. Again, next week will not be new because I am traveling again, but hopefully March will be back to normal, and I'll do live episodes every week. Until then, though, have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.